Dub Nation. After the final buzzer. This is where you come for instant post-game reaction.
Oh, hell yeah.
This is Dub's OT.
Can't wait.
With John Dickinson.
Hey, JD, what you up to, sugar? Long time no talk to.
On KNBR 104.5 and 680. Streaming live at KNBR.com and on the KNBR app.
Forget Draymond Green's been a defensive player of the year. Over the line. He flips it in. This will be free throw 13 for Jimmy Butler. Look at him looking around. Look at him pointing at Steph. They love him already.
Yeah, they love him already in Chicago as the Warriors get the win. They get the job done. They trailed by 24. They end up winning by 21. 132 to 111 is the final from Chicago. It is Dubs OT with JD here on the Sports Leader. Welcome in. A little bit of a late start because I am in Chicago. As you can see here, Kyle Haar back in our San Francisco studios. 808 KNBR. Yeah, give everybody a wave. 808 KNBR 415-808-5627. Saturday night, Jimmy Butler's debut. Me in Chicago and having an opportunity to get down to the post-game press conferences at United Center. Steve Kerr, Steph Curry had to dip out on Draymond to get up here, running a little bit later into the night than we usually like to do. But because we had the Knicks-Celtics game on and we knew we were going to have to start a little bit late, it gave us an opportunity to go down and get a feel for what things were like in the Warriors locker room post-game and in those post-game press conferences. We got a lot of great video from Steve Kerr and Jimmy Butler and Steph and Curry on our KNBR socials. So check out a lot of the quotes and sound from that. We'll play a lot of the sound from that here throughout the course of the next hour and a half. We'll keep it going as long as the people want to go and just kind of test this thing out, the delayed start here on the Saturday Dubs OT. And 1-0 are the Warriors now in the Jimmy Butler era as the Warriors able to get the win, and man, did it look ugly early. Woo! Wow. Did it look ugly early? Well, at least after the end of the first half and the first part of the third quarter. Warriors actually got off to a decent start in this one. Jimmy Butler got his first basket on a lob from Buddy Hield. Stephen Curry set a screen for him, 4 points in the first 4 minutes, but he was tired in this one. In those first 4 or 5 minutes, he really was gassed and he got subbed out. I think he was a little bit amped up. Still ended up playing a lot of minutes in this game. I thought he hit 30. Didn't quite hit 30 at 29 minutes for the night. But he was a little bit gassed. Good first quarter for the Warriors overall in this game to lead 34-31. But the end of the first quarter, beginning of the second quarter, just a massive run, 18-0 run. And the Warriors, who had been up by 6 there in the first quarter, then found themselves down by 12. I mean, no defense. They were getting cooked in transition. The Bulls really got hot from three. The Warriors missed their first 11 shots of the second quarter. They took 9 threes, and the game just completely got away from them. They looked completely disorganized, taking bad shots, disorganized defensively. They looked like they didn't know who to pick up in transition. And the young Bulls were just annihilating the Warriors from 3-point range. And you're thinking, oh, my goodness, this has the potential to be very bad for the Warriors. I mean, this is a game that I think if the Warriors had made no moves, you would have expected them to come in and win, given the fact that the Bulls had just traded Zach LaVine, and they've been dreadful of late, 22 and 31 now with the loss in this one. Warriors in this one with the win get back to 500, so they continue, win one, lose one, win one. But, man, things really got out of hand there. A 22-3 Bulls start to the second quarter, and it ended up being a 38-21 second quarter. Things got worse, believe it or not. Warriors trailing by 14 at the half, and it got worse in the early part of the third quarter. Steve Kerr had a terrible challenge that Stephen Curry basically begged him to challenge on a ball out of bounds, like 2 minutes into the quarter. Warriors didn't get it. End up down 83-59. And, man, at that point, you're thinking, I mean, it was just stunning. As poorly as the Warriors have played at times, as stunning as some of their defeats have been, some of the games that they've lost with leads that we've talked about so often. And this one, it looked like it was going to be stunning in a different direction. You get Jimmy Butler, you go in and play a team that's 10 under 500 in the Eastern Conference, and you have the potential to get blown out. Stephen Curry was not going to let that happen tonight. 12-0 run from the moment they were down 83-59. Steph had 7 of the 12, a 24-point third quarter for Stephen Curry, and the Warriors went small. And the Warriors end up completely flipping the game, lead going to the fourth quarter, 38-11 after the Warriors got down by 24. In the third quarter alone, they bridged the third and the fourth quarters, 56-13 over a 12-minute span, and that was it. The game was over at that point, and it winds up being a game that, from the low point for the Warriors to the end, winds up being a 45-point flip as the Warriors completely dominate in the fourth quarter as well and dominate in the second half, putting up 77 points to Chicago's 42. So 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. That is the number to give us a call or shoot us a text here. Yes, the opponent was not a quality opponent. Yes, it looked very bad, and in particular, very bad defensively in the first quarter, in the first half, second quarter, early part of the third quarter, really. And it had the potential to be somewhat of a disastrous type looking loss, and you can't completely move the bad away and just wash it off. And say that, there are things that this team, obviously, against better opponents, is going to have to work out. But for Steph to completely flip the game the way that he did, and for Jimmy Butler to have the game that he had, getting to the free throw line, really kind of owning the paint, ending up with 25 points, Steph's 34 with the 24 that we talked about in the third quarter. It really, when it was all said and done, regardless of how we got to that point, it looked like kind of the quintessential, all right, the lead dog is Steph, and he had a huge game, and Jimmy Butler did what he did, and those two, and that was a big talking point in the locker room and the postgame press conferences, the complementary aspect of Steph's game and Jimmy Butler's game. The way Jimmy Butler plays, getting to the free throw line a lot, stopping the game a little bit, which I think helps the Warriors attempt to be able to defend at a higher level, because the ball gets taken out of the bucket, and you have to, you can set the defense, which I think is really important. But it's Steph out on the perimeter and Jimmy taking advantage of the way teams defend Steph. And Jimmy Butler talked about that in his post-game press conference. And they just have a real complementary nature to where Steph has a little more freedom to do what he did, and Butler complements it and does what Jimmy Butler does well. And then all of a sudden the game gets easier for the two of them, but it gets easier for others as the run starts. And all of a sudden Pajemski's hitting shots. And all of a sudden Quentin Post, who had 18 points, is hitting shots. And then the defense gets ignited, and it winds up being just an unbelievable run, 56-13 over that 12-minute span, if plus 43 for the Warriors in that run after they had fallen behind by 24. And then the Bulls actually trimmed it a little bit. So you go from being down 24, and then you have a plus 43 on top of that. That is just absolutely incredible stuff. So what did you think of how it looked? 808 KNBR, our friends in the YouTube chat. Appreciate everybody hanging out tonight and jumping in and joining the conversation as we come to you from Chicago, where the Warriors back to 500. Still a lot of work to do. Milwaukee will be a better test. Hell, every team the Warriors have remaining before the All-Star break, and even the first couple of games after the All-Star break, are going to be greater tests than this one. But this is one the Warriors absolutely had to get. And I can't imagine that the disaster of, in the standings, losing this game to fall under, 2 under, and knowing you have to make it up. And really, I think wasting an opportunity to kind of work your way into how things are going to have to be kind of a win. So we'll get your thoughts on all of that. Appreciate everybody in the chat. And already I see Drew, our buddy Drew Down, who's now Drew Butler. Bulls aren't exactly a very good team. A win is a win, though. Again, we're not rating wins. That was, I think, you look at the second half, and here's my big takeaway. And if you want to say, hey, JD, it cuts both ways here. If you want to say, well, they played so badly in the first half, you have to remember that too, and this team has that level of poor play in them. If you want to say that, I can't argue with you. But my biggest takeaway from this game tonight is the simple fact that the Warriors showed what Steph and Jimmy Butler, a team led by those two, has the ability to do on the positive side over a short span. And that means one gets hot, the other does their thing, and then the rest of the team kind of comes along for the ride and gains confidence based on the fact that there's 2 star players now in the mix. It just gives you more margin for error. It gives you an opportunity when you're not playing well to work your way into a heater. We saw the rotation change tonight as well. Steph back to playing 1 sub per half, which is something that Steph really wants to do. And they structured it, I think, in an attempt to simplify things. You're going to get Jimmy playing the non-Steph minutes. And so they start together. Jimmy subs out. And then Jimmy actually came back in for Steph in the first half after the other 4 players had been subbed out. But Curry played 9 minutes in the first quarter and then had the 1 sub that bridged the end of the first quarter and beginning of the second quarter. He comes back in playing longer stretches. And I thought it was funny. Curry joked. Anthony Slater of The Athletic asked him in the postgame press conference, hey, do you think you want to go back to can go back to the 12-6, 12-6 where you play the whole first and third quarters? And Steph said, nah, he just laughed and said, no, that's not going to happen. But I do think 1 sub for Steph Curry per half as opposed to 2, you're going to get a better Steph Curry for that, even if it's not playing the entire quarters. Well, Steph damn near played the entire third quarter because he dominated it to the tune of 24 points and 5 of 8 from 3 and 7 of 11 overall. But with Jimmy Butler on the roster and the staggering of minutes, I think what that allows is it allows for those longer stretches to be played because you're not as worried about the non-Steph minutes if Jimmy Butler is going to be out there. And look, the non-Steph minutes in the second quarter were awful and a part of why the game got so out of hand to begin with. So I do want to make sure that we point that out. But I think Steph has a greater ability to go nuclear Steph like he did in the third quarter if you're playing him longer stretches. He needs to work his way and prefers, and he's talked about this through the years, he likes having longer stretches on the floor without being subbed because it allows him to get a feel for the game, a rhythm for the game, a rhythm for the arena. And he's just a little more apt to get loose. He kind of views himself a little bit as a slow starter, kind of work his way into the game vibe. And so being able to pick the spots in the game where looking to get his matters a lot more is something that again, we've seen it for years. When he was playing the 12-6, again, a younger Steph, he might not have much going, and then all of a sudden, boom, it's 4 threes in a row. And the third quarter was spectacular. And so the other big takeaway is you get Steph a legitimate number 2, and all of a sudden those quarters start coming back in game 1. 1 game sample size, bad team, understand all of that is important. to be sure. Max Lopez, Butler fits the role. Iggy enabled Curry, decent shooter, good defender, good court sense, ability to get to the hoop and create for others. That was a big, and thank you, Max Lopez. That was a big. Also, first thing Steve Kerr said today, after getting a chance, he said he'd never met Jimmy Butler. First thing Steve Kerr said today pregame, yeah, I've been talking with Jimmy, trying to get him acclimated to things. He couldn't participate in the shoot-around today because the trade hadn't gone through, and if you wonder why sometimes trades that are announced don't go through, we'll just look at that Lakers-Charlotte situation where Mark Williams is going back to Charlotte, and so it does happen from time to time. And that's why all the physicals have to be passed before anybody has the ability to play. And everything went through on the Warriors trade with the Heat. But it didn't actually formally go through until about 2.5 hours before the game, 3 hours before the game tonight, even though the anticipation was that there would not be a holdup. First thing that Kerr said after being able to talk to Jimmy Butler was how much he reminds him of Andre Iguodala. His basketball IQ, his intelligence for the game, his feel, the way he kind of views the game. And I thought to myself, my goodness, if Steve Kerr wasn't exactly warm on this trade, is Steve falling in love with Jimmy Butler because he reminds him of Andre Iguodala? Like, this could all of a sudden be a match made from heaven. And so that was kind of the first sign of optimism, and I think that's a good pickup from Max Lopez. I'll give you another one early from Max that I picked up. I think Jimmy and JK are going to work, Max says. Jimmy displays good court vision to elevate cutters. I have been on record as saying I'm not sure how they're going to work, and I'm a little skeptical as to how Butler and Kuminga are going to work. But if it's Butler setting up Kuminga for layups, it's going to work. If it like that is, and that will work, because if Kuminga can accept the lesser flash role and accept the cutting again and the getting his in transition off of defense, and maybe not being a guy who looks to cook at the top of the key and shoot a bunch of wing threes and pull up jumpers. If that Kuminga is kind of gone again, and he accepts more of again, I get it. He doesn't want to be a role player. He doesn't want to be paid like a role player. But if he accepts more of a role player mentality when he comes back, Max, I'm kind of with you, and I'm already changing my tune. I think it has the potential to work better than I originally anticipated. The combinations, though, are the key. And I asked Steve Kerr before the game how much of it's going to be almost trial and error versus groups of players on the court together that you think can work. We'll see. But that's something that's going to have to be figured out. The other thing that happened tonight, Draymond at the 5. And look, Quentin Post played pretty well. And I mean, he played exceptionally well, and he was getting some open looks based on everything else that was going on. You see the impact of him. But Draymond at the 5 is something with Jimmy Butler at the 4. And I think it would at times maybe be Jimmy Butler at the 3 with Kuminga at the 4. How much the Warriors go to that, I think, is going to be, can those 3 play together? It took some time, but Draymond, Wiggins, and Kuminga eventually could play together. And I think they're going to have to be able to move forward here and get the most out of everybody. Rusty Nail early on in the YouTube chat. I don't care it was the Bulls. That was an impressive second half. Yeah, nobody should care that it was the Bulls. Look, we're going to have 30 games now to evaluate what the Warriors can do against good teams, bad teams, middling teams. I mean, they are still a middling team. At this point, it's not about the rating of wins or who you do it against. It's can you win just about every one of these games against teams like the Bulls? To me, there's no more losing to the Bulls. There's no more losing to the Jazz. There's no more losing to Toronto. There's no more losing to those teams at the bottom of the NBA standings between now and the end of the season. There's no losing to Brooklyn. There's no losing to Portland's been playing better. There's no losing to Portland. You got to win those games, period. And you got to do really well in the games against the teams that are basically like you. And then I think the true test games are going to be against the teams that are truly better than them. As you look at, they're done playing Boston, but they play Milwaukee. That will be a good test. You look at the Houstons and the Grizzlies and the teams like that. Those Denver. Those will all be good tests. Good tests. Thanks, Raph. Is that Raph?
Oh, Raph was super clutch, getting some Jimmy Butler and even some Draymond sound that we'll definitely hear later on.
I love it, Raph. Appreciate you, my man. As always, great to see you. Raph, big Chicago guy, but not a Bulls guy. Or is he a Bulls guy? You are a Bulls guy, aren't you? You are a Bulls guy, aren't you?
I'm just a fan in general of basketball.
That's okay. You're a Chicago guy. It's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. Raph, thank you, man. Great job. Raph, heading out into the night. Stay safe out there. We appreciate everything that Raph Corral does. We appreciate everything that Kyle Haar does. We have Kyle Chung. It's been a long day here on the Saturday before heading back to the Bay. I am not heading on to Milwaukee as the Warriors are, and then Dallas and Houston. I am going to be headed home to enjoy the Super Bowl as long as everything stays on time and on schedule tomorrow, and I'm looking forward to it. And Dubs OT from the friendly confines of the home studio here for the remainder of the week, and then no All-Star break because the All-Star game's in San Francisco, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So we're really looking forward to all of that. But yeah, Draymond at the 5 is back, and so I think the Warriors are going to have to look at different combinations of that. And then, like I was saying about the standings, it's, how do you do against Phoenix and Sacramento and those teams that are right there with you? Dallas coming up on this trip. It's all those teams, the Clippers. I think there's one more game against the Clippers that's coming up. How you do against those teams, I think, is going to be the most important thing. San Jose Jazz fan, early as I was down in the press conferences, take your time, JD. I have to finish dinner. Yeah. Okay. What works for one, works for others. And we've got the sound rolling, right? We're good to go. Everything's sounding good here. Okay. Good. Let's see. And yeah, appreciate Kyle for kind of keeping everybody in the mix here as to what we were doing. Andis, I agree with you. Bulls were the perfect get right game. Bad defense, can't rebound. I thought about you, Andis, as the Warriors were falling apart in the second quarter and the early part of the third. I thought, oh my God, this was supposed to be the get right game, and it wasn't, but it ended up being because the Bulls cooled off and the Warriors made the Bulls cool off, and it all added up to a feel good win. And yes, CA. The YouTube stream was not traded away for Jimmy Butler, but Jimmy Butler is the only Jimmy Butler on his first game when we've traveled to Chicago is the first ever delayed edition for this season of Dubs OT. We did a few last year actually at this time during the Super Bowl week, since the 49ers were in the Super Bowl. Greg Silver and myself, we did a few late editions after a lot of the Super Bowl coverage was done when the Warriors were this week as well on a road trip. And so, yeah, we appreciate it. Fozzie, I do owe you a brew. I owe you a shot. Well, I would say I owe you a shot at Harmonic, but Harmonic is just doing beer and wine. Harmonic's beer and wine. So I'll buy you a beer at Harmonic. I might have to get you a shot somewhere else. But nevertheless, yeah, I owe everybody. That's right. Everybody, Kyle, gets a shot. But no Chicago Dogger brew, just waiting for Jimmy Butler. And Andis also adding, Buddy Hield, 3 straight solid games. Yeah, Buddy was up and down tonight. I thought there were some dark moments, as there often are for Buddy. But he also did hit some shots early and hit some shots in the midst of that Warriors run that helped allow them to to get back in the game in that third quarter. And Buddy Hield, all told, ended up 14 points, made 4 threes. The Warriors ended up with 19 threes tonight, which is important on a night where the Bulls were cooking. The Warriors ended up winning the 3-point battle tonight, 19-17 in terms of makes. And that was a big part of having the ability to flip the game. Transition, Warriors got destroyed in transition, 25-6, but that cooled in the second half after the Bulls really allowed for that to get them off to the quick, fast, and in a hurry start that they got off to. 808 KNBR 415-808-5627. Golden State Lumber and Building Materials text line open as well if you want to jump in and join the conversation there. But yeah, Warriors get the win, 132-111. Let's go ahead and take a quick timeout. We'll come back. We'll get more into the YouTube chat. We'll also we'd probably do a short segment, and then we'll do a Sounds of Dubs OT segment, and we'll do some fun with numbers and call it a night so we can all enjoy the remainder of our Saturday nights and get ready for the big game coming up tomorrow. So we'll come back. Warriors win at 132-111. It's KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.
Dub Nation, this is the real and inside story on Warriors basketball. Dubs OT with John Dickinson continues. Streaming live at twitch.tv/thesportsleader.
Adamski didn't settle for that three. Cycle back to the hottest guy. Curry's got a three. Steph's got 34. This dude is unreal. They left him for a second after they double teamed him. They got out there. He pump fake. That was a tough make, though. 24 in the quarter.
Third for Steph Curry. Warriors flipped the game. Let's hear Jimmy. Wait for it. It's a good little message for Jimmy Butler. Warriors win in Chicago, 132-111. We're back here, Dubs OT with JD on the Sports Leader. 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. Really appreciate everybody for hanging with us so late here. Having a good time in Chicago. And the Warriors, man, an unbelievable flip of the game after being down by 24. And really couldn't do anything defensively. I mean, they were in bad shape. Disgusting second quarter. Rusty Nail back to 500 in the YouTube chat. Back to 500, a familiar place. But yeah, I mean, unbelievable from Steph. Again, I like the way that Steve staggered the minutes, and I think that's something that you can expect between now and the end of the year. The other thing that came out post-game too was the fact that I asked Steve post-game about is it important that this group showed, even though it was a half and against a bad team, is it important to show that this group has the ability to play that well together that quickly? And he gave a kind of a ho-hum answer. But then he said, where it really matters is the standings. And I thought it was interesting. And he went on to add that the goal in his mind is get to 6. Now, he also said that might be too difficult, that they really are going to have to get hot. I think we talked about it, 31 games, 1 now done. And for the Warriors to get to 6, I think it's probably a minimum of 21-10, 20-11. To get to 6, but I thought it was good that was at least a stated goal of the team, because he wouldn't tell the media that if he hadn't told the players that. And I think there is an urgency to this. And so for his big takeaway to be the fact that the Warriors showed that they could, do this, being the fact that it leads to a win, knowing that they have to be excellent. Basically 2 out of every 3 down the stretch to achieve this goal that's out there. Whether they end up reaching that or not, have to play-in games or not, however it ends up shaking out, I think that's also a good sign that there is that urgency in play here. So 808 KNBR, we got Fozzie on the line out in the East Bay here on the Sports Center. What's going on, Fozzie, from the chat to the phone lines tonight?
JD, what's up, man? How's Chicago treating you?
Chicago's been great, man. It's a quick trip. I'm probably going to have a brew and a little deep dish tonight before bed, because that's really what you want to do right before you're going to eat all day during the Super Bowl. But that's all right. It's a good time, man. We're living out here in Chicago, Fozzie.
There we go. I'm going to have to come over to Harmonic and get a beer from you for being late today. But
absolutely, you got it. You stop by and I got you, brother.
Man, appreciate it, bro. But look, I wanted to call in and say, look, hey, Jimmy, I'm giving him an A+ grade tonight for his debut as a Warrior. I mean, in the first half, it looked like, everything that you kind of expected. The guy hadn't played for a while, and I don't even think he practiced with the team. And so it was kind of rusty out there, but, he's a pro. And he came out there in the second half, and Steve Kerr or Steph Curry and Draymond made some adjustments. And look, being down 21 a month ago, we're already calling it. That's game. But Jimmy Butler, he felt his way into this team tonight. is what he did. He didn't take any unnecessary shots. He was patient, and he learned how to play. He grew up right in front of our eyes in 2 quarters, is what it looked like to me. So you know what?
Yeah.
Cheers to him. Cheers to everybody in the chat, man. I think we can keep this thing rolling.
Thanks, Fozzie. Yeah, I thought it was. He said he thought maybe in the first half they basically knew 3 plays. Right? They said, hey, we're going to teach you 3 plays. This is kind of the basics. There's options off of each play. But one other thing was that, the transition could work out better for him than people think, because Eric Spoelstra runs a lot of the Warriors' offensive system. And so even though it may not look when you watch it, because the Heat are grit and grind and don't always have the shooting, they run a lot of the same stuff that the Warriors do. And so Jimmy is pretty familiar with a lot of the same concepts, even if the terminology maybe is a little bit different. So I think that was interesting. And yeah, the one thing that would always stand out to me with Miami, and again, it's one game, so you don't want to get carried away. It seemed like he took a lot of bad shots with Miami. It just, and maybe it was because he had to, because he was clear cut the best player. And there were a lot of games where he would have to kind of drag that team to wins. And when you do that, you take some bad shots, some pull up mid-range jumpers and things like that. But I thought tonight he seemed like he was thinking in the first half about where he needed to be and what he needed to do. And in the second half, and Jimmy attested it to the other players, he really thought, and he took a little dig at Miami in this. He said that there were a lot of Warrior players and coaches that were telling him to just be himself. Be yourself. Don't worry about the offense and the system. And if you're in the right, like, be you. Play the way you play. And just make, play basketball, basically. You're a smart, intelligent basketball player. Just play basketball. And you're extremely talented, so it's all going to get caught in the wash. And so he really felt empowered by that. And he did take a little swipe at Miami, saying that it was, it was good to hear. It was good to keep hearing that. Be yourself, be yourself, be yourself, which, again, I think part of why the whole thing that Miami broke up is the fact that at some point, money or otherwise, and money definitely part of it, he began to feel a little underappreciated. And again, the compliment of Steph and the compliment of Jimmy Butler is the number one takeaway. And you're not going to want to miss what Steph Curry had to say about that, which we're going to play coming up here at the bottom of the hour in our Sounds of Dubs OT, which is going to be about 10 minutes away here. But yeah, that's the theme of the night, is how well those two complement each other. Because really, it's not so much about Jimmy fitting with everybody on the Warriors roster as it is, can he fit with Steph? And if he fits with Steph, then you go get players around the two of them or coach them to fit around those two players. And obviously Draymond's into that mix. But if those two click and function together, the whole freaking thing gets easier. And we've seen it with all of these other teams that the Warriors have been losing to that have the two stars, and basically are beating the Warriors on those nights because it's like, oh, star A had this and star B did that. And it made the game easier for other players to be able to be successful against the Warriors. The Warriors are now back in that game. And I think that's the number one takeaway. Yeah, and in addition to just the ability to get to the free throw line, which is something that the Warriors just haven't had. And so far, Kyle, one game, I don't think anybody should be worried about Jimmy not getting a whistle. Jimmy got a Jimmy Butler whistle tonight. I don't think there was anything egregious. I don't think there was a bad call tonight. I thought he got fouled every time he got fouled, and they called it, and he went to the line, which I know Warrior fans get up in arms because they don't think Steph Curry necessarily gets that. But yeah, 13 attempts, 11 to 13 attempts. Very, 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 very much needed. And Andis, Drew Butler's ability to get to the line, make free throws is nice to see. Yeah, and again, Wiggins would get to the line, but not every game. And Kuminga would get to the line and not always make them. And Wiggins would get to the line sometimes and not always make them. And Jimmy at times is going to miss. But if you're getting in the double digits of attempts and the double digits of makes, you're coming out on top, even if you are missing a few. That's bottom line, point blank. And we were talking about trades and being rescinded and different things, and why Jimmy Butler couldn't practice and take part in shoot around. That Mark Williams trade, as Andis Brown mentioned, because of the failed physical. Interesting story. Thankful it wasn't the Jimmy trade. Yeah, we talked about that earlier. I mean, those are the kinds of things until it's officially official. Why they have those rules in place. And I don't think there was ever a hang-up. I think it was probably just a timing thing with one of the players. I didn't get a chance to find out who. And look, if there is an issue on a physical, the trade still can't go through if everybody accepts the terms of where that player is. The problem is the deadline is passed, and so you can't go back. Like if this had happened Monday or Tuesday in the Lakers case, they could say we're not doing the trade. And then Charlotte could say, well, would you still do the trade if you give us one fewer first-round pick? Or would you? It becomes a negotiating tactic, basically. Or would you do this if – or maybe you're the Lakers. You're like, we're not giving you Dalton Connect because of this, but we'll give you another player. And then you can kind of redo the deal. But when you do the deal and then the physicals take place and it's right before the deadline, as this deal was, then you have to have all the physicals able to be passed. If they're all passed after the deadline and something you don't like, then you either have to accept it or you have to look to move on from there. Reed the Steed, good game from Buddy. Sean, good game from Jimmy. Post versus Giannis. Jason Mishler on Monday night in Milwaukee. AJ Rich Ray, Pods, Buddy, Post, Draymond play well together somehow. You can't double and triple Steph. Dre seems to love Jimmy's physicality. Best game in years. Yeah, and AJ Cruz along those lines as well. I thought Jimmy and Dre would tangle, but I love a feeling they'll tag team and take Gobert out for the rest of the season. I guess I could have left the last part out. And they don't have any games left against Minnesota, by the way. The Warriors are maybe in the playoffs or the play-ins. We'll see. But yeah, I mean, look, Quentin Post, if teams are leaving Quentin Post open and he can just catch and shoot, Quentin Post can be a 40% three-point shooter as a big in the NBA. He might have a 10-year NBA career just doing that as a part-time starter backup type player that you're going to want to have around. And if your talent level is such to where, you can carry somebody that his, and look, I like Post physicality. He had a nice little rebound, quick little putback early. He has handled Vucevic in a couple of games pretty effectively at different points. So I think all of that is looking good here at this particular point in time. So 808 KNBR 415-808-5627. Rich Ray Jimmy wants contact. EB here, 3 Hall of Famers in the starting lineup. That's a fact. And that is one thing that I would point to as it relates to, nobody wanted to lose Wiggins, but you had to lose Wiggins regardless of what high-priced player you ended up acquiring. And so that has to be something that gets factored in. The fact that, look, Jimmy is an elite player when Jimmy's on. He didn't look old tonight. I'll say that. And so, again, if Jimmy Butler's going to be an efficient scorer, then I think that's going to open up a lot of other doors for the Warriors here moving forward. Digum 117, they were down 24, so I'll take it in the YouTube chat. So 808 KNBR, let's go ahead and pause here. We'll come back and we will get to our Sounds of Dubs OT, more from the chat, and also our Fun with Numbers segment as we keep this thing going. I guess we will be able to we'll keep it going until the top of the hour here as the Warriors get the win in Chicago, 132-111. It's KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.
Everything's gonna be all right.
KNBR presents the sounds of Dubs OT.
I can see the headline now. Kerr says Warriors better without Curry.
No class, no ball. I want to get my joy back. I'm happy here, off the court.
Now here's John Dickinson.
All right, welcome back. It's Dubs OT with JD from Chicago. Warriors win 132-111. 808 KNBR if you want to jump in and join the conversation. Are the Warriors back? I'm kidding. But it does kind of feel that way. Kyle, before we get to the cuts, I don't know. We've talked about this a couple times, but this team is not the 2022 team. This is not any of the teams that won or contended for titles, 15, 16 on, the Durant era in 17, 18, 19. This team is not that team in terms of talent. We'll see how good they can be ultimately. But the swag tonight and just the elite personalities, whether it's Steph Curry doing what Steph Curry did in the third quarter, whether it's Jimmy Butler with all of his little digs at the Heat on one hand, but embracing of the Warriors and being in the Bay on the other hand, like it just feels like it did, back then from a viral nature, to use a social media term. Like, this team feels viral again. And like there was nothing like it when they were on that run 17, 18, 19, and then the pandemic, and they weren't as good. And then it did come back once everybody realized, oh my God, this 22 team can win a championship. But it has been gone these last couple of years. And I think it's almost back, not even the 22 level, Kyle, but even to the 18, 19 level, because Jimmy Butler's personality and his superstar aura is that of a Kevin Durant. Again, not set the players and all that, but just the aura of Jimmy Butler is like the aura of a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, Draymond said it during his postgame, where he felt like if you have Jimmy Butler on the court, you feel like you're going to win the game, and it gives you that much confidence. And also, I felt, especially when they're getting their rhythm in the game, like they looked like they were actually having fun playing basketball. And I don't think I could have said that the last few weeks.
No doubt. Or I thought you were going to say the last year and a half, but I thought you caught me there, Kyle. I thought you were going to say the last year and a half. All right, let's get to Sounds of Dubs OT here, and we'll start with the head coach, Steve Kerr. The quote of the night, and there were quite a few, but here was Steve Kerr's high praise for Jimmy Butler in Jimmy's Warriors debut.
Pretty fun having Jimmy on our team. Yeah, he's an amazing player. The ability to get fouled, it just settles the game for us at key times. But I'm most impressed with his passing. I just think his passing changes everything, connects the game. And he does it from anywhere. He'll dive down to the post, catch it down there, or he'll pass off the dribble, or he'll just make the quick swing. So the skill, the strength, the ability to get to the free throw line, and then in the end goes beyond that. It's his just his presence out there. He's a lion out there. He is a force.
He's a lion out there. Going to hear a lot about that over the next couple of days and weeks as it relates to this team. Yeah, the point about the passing, and Jeremy Wong in the YouTube chat, Jimmy's a much better passer than I thought. That I knew he created a lot for Miami, but it felt more isolation based, drive and kick type of basic stuff. But yeah, and again, what Kerr said about him being kind of like Iguodala and the way he sees the game pregame, that there was a lot more. You know what it made me think? It made me think all of the talk about Jimmy being unable to fit the Warrior system is going to be kind of BS. Like, he is going to be intelligent enough and skilled enough and have the right basketball IQ enough to be able to fit in the system.
Well, we heard a lot from the chat and from phone calls when the Warriors got Jimmy, just like that he was too selfish. And I think this game he couldn't have been any more unselfish.
No, he just made the right play and took good shot. I mean, I want to look at his shot chart here real quick because, he really. Let's see, Jimmy Butler. I got to click over here. Jimmy Butler, shot chart tonight. So he took 1 3 tonight. So he was 7 for 12 field goal attempts. 10 of his 12 shots were in the paint. 10 of his 12 shots were in the paint. He took one mid-range jumper that he missed. It was, about a 12-footer that he missed. Not even really a full mid-range, but outside of the paint. And so he was 7 of 10 in the paint. And there were post-ups. I mean, that's the other thing. Like, the Warriors don't really have guys who post up. And, the post-up game is gone, really, for the most part in today's NBA. But when you have somebody that can just a few times a game get down in the post and you can run a very simple play for it, get a guy on your back and turn and score on him, like that's something that keeps you from stagnating or draw foul. Or pass out of it, or step out and pass out of it. So yeah, I thought, Jimmy's shot selection tonight was exceptional, and 7 of 10 in the paint, and then 11 free throws. So he had all 25 of his points. All 25 of them were either points in the paint or free throws, and it was 7 of 12. And so he only takes 12 shots, and he ends up scoring 25 points. I mean, that's maximum freaking efficiency from Jimmy Butler. All right, let's continue. Another from Steve Kerr, talking about the ability now to have Jimmy on the floor while Stephen Curry is on the bench.
It was more just because Steph was rolling. I mean, I don't love playing him 12 straight, but he was just on fire, obviously. He just completely flipped the game. There was no way I was going to take him out. The big change, I think, in the fourth quarter was keeping Draymond out there and putting Quentin with Draymond and Jimmy and BP and Buddy, and that lineup was able to carry on that third quarter momentum. Quentin was fantastic. He gives us that space 5 that opens up the floor, and it's watching Draymond and Jimmy together defensively is really, really something.
Yeah, they give an extra level. And the initial question there was to Steve about Steph playing nearly the entire third quarter. And the answer, not a new change in rotation or anything like that. Although I do think Steph's going to go back to playing 8, 9 in a row and then sitting for 6 or 7 and then coming back and finishing halves and finishing quarters. I think the days of the sub and then come back and then sub again, and then play, where it's, he's playing for 6, and then he's subbing for 4, and then he's playing for 4, and then he's subbing for 4, and then he's playing for 4. Like that, I think that's done. It's going to be, he plays a stretch, he sits a stretch, he plays a stretch in both halves, and that's the way they're going to dice it up from now on. But having Jimmy Butler allows you to very simply build your rotation around it. I mean, that's the other benefit of having 2 elite players, even if they're older, is it because we've talked so often for years about this. Well, Steve can't figure out the right combinations and the right guys in the right night. Well, having a guy like Jimmy Butler makes it a hell of a lot easier because you've got 2 guys now that you just know are going to play no matter the hell what in certain parts of the game, and then you fill in the rest of it around it. Damon Chang, Steph and Jimmy on the same team for the next 2.5 years. Night. Well, again, I don't want to get carried away. It's Chicago, all that. But you saw signs of what it could be when it's good. That and even better than good, great. And I think that's as I've said a few times, the big takeaway for me in this one. All right, let's hit a couple of Steph Curry's as well, as it is Dubs OT and sounds of Dubs OT here on the Sports Leader. Here's Steph on the change back in rotation. So this one piggybacks the last question and going back to a more normal rotation with the 1 sub per half.
Yeah, I went back to a more traditional kind of rotation, playing a full spread in the first quarter, having a block rest, and he's on the floor for those minutes, and then we're taking turns because he's obviously a guy you can run an offense through and can demand attention, create advantages, obviously get to the line. So one game, a lot to build on. The first half was kind of a weird filling out process, and Chicago got hot, but our composure, in that second half was great to see. And just the idea that we were very intentional about everything we were trying to do in the second half, and it obviously worked.
Yeah, it worked in a big way. They it was a little panicky. It was a little. I think they were a little over trying to do everything a certain way at times in that second quarter. It's just a bad group at the beginning of the second quarter, and they'll have to figure that out. I'm looking at who was at. It was Looney, Jimmy, Moody, Buddy, and Pajemski, the group that really got that quarter off horrifically, and GP played a little bit after that. Post came in and didn't have much, and so it was just it got away from him a little bit. But yeah, I'm having Steph play those longer stretches, I think, is huge. Having Jimmy on the roster gives Steph the ability to do that, and everything else just kind of falls in line off of that. It's just a more normal team structure. It's just a more normal, like we were talking about. It's these other teams that have the two guys and then the pecking order, and then you build off of that. I thought this was probably the line of the night from Steph. In addition to Steve calling Jimmy Butler a lion, this one is the quote of the night from Stephen Curry. Listen to what he says about how Jimmy Butler complements his game. I think this should have Warrior fans feeling pretty good about things moving forward.
It's huge, and as we keep going, game by game, you'd hope to have a flurry like that where you open it up. But if the game's, possession here, possession there, the momentum's not going your way, like that should be able to help us. Whether he's either getting to the line or finishing in the paint, again, he draws attention. And so if we're decisive and organized, it's hard to kind of take away everything. And I think the idea that he's like the exact opposite player of me, which is kind of funny. Like, I'm shooting 16 threes. He shot one, got to the free throw line a lot. He's dominating the paint. I'm dominating the outside and the perimeter. Guys working around us has a potential to be really, really fun.
Yeah, and you saw that tonight in a big-time way with Curry dominating the perimeter in that third quarter, and Jimmy Butler, the shot chart that we just went over, everything was in the paint except for the 1-3 and the one semi-mid-range jumper, but all of his points were either in the paint or at the free throw line. That's a dynamic that the Warriors just have not had at all. And how about the Warriors dominating points in the paint tonight, 46, not dominating, but winning it, plus 12 points in the paint, 46-34 in a game that you ultimately flip and win 132-111. All right, so you heard from Steph about the complementary nature of Jimmy Butler's game as it relates to his. Let's hear from Jimmy Butler on those two fitting together and complementing each other.
They say opposites attract in a lot of ways in life, and I don't think I could be a better complement to him and vice versa, in the sense that they're not leaving him ever. Probably two people would never leave him, so there's so much space for everybody else, and I get the easy job. I'm playing one-on-one, or I'm playing in so much space, and then everybody's looking for him, and everybody's looking to get him open, and at the same time, he's looking for everybody else. So it's so great to play with somebody like that.
He gets the easy job. That's what you call buying in. That's what you call appreciation. That's what you call mutual respect between two future Hall of Fame players and one all-time great legend in Steph Curry. These two are starting to dig it. And again, I come back to the fact that showing that you can do what you did tonight, even against a trash Bulls team, showing that you can do that tonight, a rebuilding on the fly Bulls team, playing a lot of young players, kind of playing out the string, got rid of Zach LaVine. Showing that you can do it only helps to continue to build the confidence. But to hear the mutual admiration between those two, I think is a big time thing to help carry things moving forward. All right, we teased this clip earlier, and it was Jimmy Butler as things were not going well, and he was maybe overthinking the game a little bit and trying to make sure he was in the right spot, doing the right thing at the right time. Here's what Jimmy Butler had to say about his teammates and how his teammates were able to get him going in a very significant way.
It's one and the same, but it always helps whenever you have everybody on the roster, everybody on the coaching staff continually telling me to be who I am, be myself, and it'll work out just fine. So, I was trying to do what I thought was right, and then it was like, oh, well, everybody's telling me to be me, so go do it. And then I think we played a little bit better because I was out there being myself.
That's it. Be myself. The entire roster and coaching staff. That was the dig. The entire roster and coaching staff telling me to be myself even when things are not going great. And look, there was another thing that Steve Kerr said pregame, and he and I'm going to paraphrase it since we don't have the clip, but it was essentially that, hey, Jimmy's time had come and gone. And sometimes there's a shelf life for a player with a team or an organization in a city, whatever it is. And he was a great fit for Miami when he came to Miami. And then it wore between him and them and him, however. But now's the right time for him in his career. And even referenced Andre Iguodala again, where Steve Kerr in his first year, Iguodala, he asked him to come off the bench, and he does it, and he ends up being a great bench player for the Warriors and starts in the finals, ends up being the finals MVP, but his sacrifice set the tone for the whole season. Everybody knows the story, blah, blah, blah. Steve related that back to Jimmy in the sense that, timing and everything makes a lot of sense. And then he relayed that, Iguodala had told him, if you'd asked me to do that 3 years ago, I would have told you to go to hell. and I'm not doing it because at that point he was still at a place where he was young, he was inexperienced, he maybe hadn't gotten the respect of the big contract that he wanted, or the last big contract that he wanted, or whatever it was. And so there was a component of right player, right place, right situation to accept sacrifices in a different manner and accept playing with new teammates, different style, whatever. Anyway, I thought it was fascinating. He relayed that back to Jimmy in terms of just the shelf life with Miami, and that the Warriors, in his mind, are getting Jimmy Butler back in their system at the right time, with Jimmy Butler a little bit more seasoned, but also having gone through some of the things that he went through to where things had soured and become stale in Miami. All right, let's hear another clip here. It sounds at Dubs OT. We got Jimmy. Let's get Draymond Green, our final clip. Draymond talking about what Jimmy Butler brings to the table above all else.
A great target. Put the ball in his area, he go up and get it. But just, what he brings to the floor on both sides of the ball. Getting fouled, get to the free throw line, which allows us to set our defense. Having that kind of that force that can score the ball in the paint. Very strong, but more importantly than all those things, he's brought just a belief that we can win. And I think that's bigger than anything.
Yeah, and that belief that they can win was on display when you get down 24. And the game at that point was an embarrassment. I mean, they weren't just down 24. They were getting embarrassed by the Chicago Bulls, who have struggled, to say the least. And, yeah, the Bulls were on one of those heaters that sometimes teams get on, in particular against the Warriors, because they see the Warriors jersey come into their building and it's a sellout and they get amped up and all of those kinds of things. But also I think in part because it's the Warriors, they try to prevent drives and leave three-point shooters open, and sometimes three-point shooters get confidence even if they're not great three-point shooters. And the concern tonight was that they let the Bulls get so comfortable that they were just going to stay comfortable. But when the Warriors hit them in that third quarter, after the Bulls got up 24, the Bulls did cave. They started taking bad shots. They started turning it over. They were engulfed and swallowed up by the momentum. And we've seen the Warriors at their best iterations be able to do that to other teams. And the game just completely flips at that point in time. But the ability and belief is what Draymond is talking about for the Warriors to be able to know that there was games still left to play. How many times you see the Warriors in the heyday? And we're not in the heyday, but how many times you see the Warriors in the heyday? They're down 18, and yes, they had the most talent of any team in the league, but there's a belief that they can flip a switch and come back. And not going to necessarily be able to do that against good teams. Don't necessarily want to do it against teams like the Bulls, but you have the ability to do it, and you have to win different ways. I think too often we've seen the Warriors over the last year and a half having to try to win the same way a lot. And that when you do that, it lowers that margin for error again, and things bog down and get stale, and then losing seeps in, and then you start to have a little bit of doubt in some of those big games and big moments, and it all kind of snowballs on itself. All right, let's get to fun with numbers to close things out here on this Saturday night.
This is Dubs OT with JD. Time now for fun.
I'm a fun guy.
With numbers.
No, I'm just having fun.
On KNBR 104.5 and 680. Streaming live on KNBR.com and the KNBR app.
All right, Warriors get the win. A lot of interesting numbers from this one, 132 to 111, the final. So the Warriors get their first victory on the road trip. 3 games to go. They're 1-2 on the trip, 26-26. We went through all the 26-26, 25, 24. Anyway, we won't do it again. But back to 500 at 26-26 in Milwaukee Monday, Dallas Wednesday, Houston Thursday. Before the All-Star break, 11-13 on the road. Warriors had a 3-game road losing streak snapped in this one. Warriors swept the season series against the Bulls. Warriors were down by 24 and won by 21. So it's called in statistical terms, and I believe this one I want to credit the Elias Sports Bureau for, the play-by-play era. So basically since 1997, every play is logged in for every game, and it's a part of the box score. There's an official designation of every play that happens in a game, a way that it is written out or typed into the log. And since 1997, there's been that for every game in the NBA. So since then, roughly 30 years, 28 years, Warriors trailed by 24, won by 21. In the last 28 years, first time a team won by at least 21 after trailing by as many as 24. That 45-point flip per Elias in the last 28 years. So something extremely unique. Largest deficit for the Warriors overcome to win a game this season. And here's another thing. Remember when Steph was told about the 1-20 or whatever it was in comebacks? And that was fourth quarter comebacks, and this wasn't that. But a 24-point comeback is almost as impressive as a fourth quarter comeback of being down 10 or 12. And Steph almost couldn't believe that the Warriors were so bad in those situations. Well, guess what? Night one, Jimmy Butler, you show you have the ability to do that. And when you show you have the ability to do it, you keep doing it. Even in games where you're not down 24, maybe it's a game where you're down 12 with 6 minutes to go. So I think that ends up becoming important. Second time this year, the Warriors rallied to win a game being down by 20. So it's happened one other time. Kyle, you want to guess the one other time it happened? Off the top of your head, 5 seconds. 3 seconds.
Was it in the playoffs?
No. The last time, it was one time this season. I know you're not. October 29th. It was the first game of 2 against the Pelicans. It was a game Steph Curry didn't play. It was the Lindy Waters game. It was the Lindy Waters game at Chase Center where Lindy Waters helped the Warriors come from 20 down with Steph out. Incredibly. That was the game that the Warriors came back from 20 down. And yeah, so October, last time the Warriors trailed by 24-1 was Philadelphia in November of 2017. Last time they trailed by as many as 24-1 a game. So an interesting note there. These are all via the Elias Sports Bureau. And yeah, you go back to being down 20 and winning by 20. That hadn't happened since 1999 when they were down 20 and ended up winning by 20 at Minnesota. So it was a unique game, and the numbers tell you that it was an extremely unique game. Also, the fifth largest comeback in the NBA this season in terms of points down. 31st different starting lineup for the Dubs, which is second most in the NBA. I tell you, now that the Jimmy Butler combinations are in play, Kyle, I mean, Steve really could run this thing up. I don't think he's getting to the NBA record, which was, I think, 49, we said it was. Memphis last year, or maybe it was it 51, 49? I don't think he's getting to, I don't think the Warriors are getting to that, but there are some new Jimmy Butler combinations. The Warriors overcome the 18-0 run, which was the longest run against them for an opponent this season. 42 points in the third quarter. The Warriors shot over 50%, which is always a good sign. First time they shot over 50% since this. I can't even believe this. The Warriors hadn't shot 50% since January 4th. It's been 18 games since the Warriors shot over 50%. That was 5 weeks. It's been 5 weeks since the Warriors had one game where they shot over 50%. That's mind-boggling. But 1-for-1 in the Jimmy Butler era. Steph goes for 34, 24-point third quarter, 41st 20-point quarter for Steph. That's the most 20-point quarters by any player in history, the play-by-play era. Season-high tying 8 3-pointers. Incredible. Jimmy Butler's debut, finishing with 25 points. We've run down his line, the 11 free throws, 7 of 12, 29 minutes. Most points in a Warriors debut, mid-season Warriors debut, since Andrew Wiggins. How about that? Most points in a Warriors mid-season debut since Andrew Wiggins 5 years ago today on February 8th. Andrew Wiggins had 24 in his first game with the Warriors, which ironically, 5 years ago today, Wiggins' first game with the Warriors, and he ends up getting traded for Jimmy Butler. 18 points for Quentin Post. Fourth game scoring in double figures. 4 3-pointers for Post. Second most behind his 5 3-pointers that he had against the Bulls. So Quentin Post torched the Bulls in 2 games. He had 9 3-pointers in 2 games. He saw Vucevic and said, "We got Vucevic right here, baby."
Damn it, I was going to say that. We have Vucevic at home.
Got Vuce at home. I was leaving that one for you. I was leaving that part for you. I was hoping you would correct me. And then Podziemski, up and down game for Podziemski, but he ended up with 16. And incredible, the 56-13 run for the Warriors after they trailed by 24. That is a minus 24 and then a plus 43. That winds up being what does the trick to lead the Warriors to victory and back to a 26-26 record. Quick look at the NBA standings as well. Sacramento, talk about 20-point comeback. Sacramento was down 20 at home to the Pelicans tonight. Came back and won, though, 123-118. And so they are 26-26 on the year as I bring up my NBA standings. So the Warriors don't gain any ground on Sacramento. Sacramento came in 10th. Kings actually move up to 9th. And it's a 3-way tie right now for 9th between the Kings, Suns, and Warriors. Warriors don't have the tiebreaker over either, so the Warriors are the team that's on the outside looking in. Right now, 8th is Dallas, a game and a half ahead of Sacramento, Phoenix, and the Warriors. And then the Clippers, they got to win tonight over the Jazz, 130-110. So the Clippers find themselves in that seventh spot, 3 games back. The Warriors are 3.5 back of sixth. Sixth is Minnesota. Minnesota's been rolling of late, as we talked about. They got another win. They blew out Portland 114-98. Dallas 116-105 over Houston. The Lakers won. Lakers have been in that 5 spot. Dallas ends up ahead of the pack there that we just mentioned. And so those are some scores of note. Denver won in Phoenix 122-105. So the Suns are dropped to the 3-way tie with Sacramento and the Warriors here. Now with 30 games to go for all of those, it's a 30-game race to the finish. And yeah, the Spurs got beat again in Orlando. They lost to Charlotte, now lost in Orlando. San Antonio 22-28. So they're 3 games out of 10 at this point. And San Antonio 1-2 now in the De'Aaron Fox era. Sacramento 1-2 in the Zach LaVine era. As you look at those 2 teams who made that trade here over the last couple of days. All right, that's going to do it for us. Kyle, great stuff. Appreciate you, my man. And yeah, everything back in our San Francisco studios. Raf Corral, did I forget anybody tonight? Kyle Chung from earlier. What a day, Kyle. What a day this has been.
What a day. And shout out to you for racking up the miles, giving us expanded Warrior coverage, traveling from LA to Chicago. Just round of applause. Round of applause.
Well, did you know? I don't know that I actually, so here's the thing. I actually went home first, believe it or not. Because it was, we were waiting for, is Jimmy Butler going to play? So this week was go to LA. If Jimmy Butler trade happens, we're in the home studio Wednesday night. And then it's we were going to LA regardless because it was trade deadline day. And Austin went down, Austin Scott in our digital department. He was going down. And then it's, Jimmy Butler's going to be, I thought it might take till today for Jimmy Butler to even have his first media session and play likely today, unless there was a conditioning or injury thing where he was going to need a ramp up. But no, it was LA and then waiting for, is Jimmy going to play? Is Jimmy not going to play? Is everything going to go through? And so I actually flew home and waited in Oakland to see whether the Chicago trip was going to happen. And then when it all came down in the afternoon and got word that Jimmy Butler was going to play, it was on the plane to Chicago and right back home tomorrow to enjoy a day off and the Super Bowl. And we'll be back at it with Dubs OT on Monday night from the home studio the rest of the week here. But the Jimmy Butler era off to a rousing start for the Warriors and a rousing start here for Dubs OT. Kyle.
Oh no, yeah. And enjoy a well-deserved Super Bowl Sunday off.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Although again, 3.5 hours of that's going to be on the plane. And there was a little turbulence on the flight.
No,
your guy doesn't do. I'm not telling that story. But I had not tonight because we're going to get out of here. But there was a terrifyingly turbulent flight on the way to Chicago, like an all-timer for your guy. And your guy's a little bit of an uneasy flyer. Just letting you behind the curtain. JD doesn't do great he'll get through it, but he doesn't do great on the planes. And it was it was a test of wills on the ascent on the flight to Chicago.
Yeah, my motion sickness could never do it.
No, it was. Oh, I don't know. Am I ever going to get to see Jimmy Butler play? There was a moment where I was, but everything was fine. It was just some pretty severe turbulence is what I'm going to call it. I didn't get a chance to ask I was going to ask the flight attendant. Sometimes maybe you can chat with the pilot a little bit when you're getting off the plane if they're kind of standing around. I ended up not doing. I was going to ask the flight attendant, like, is that like on a scale of 1 to 10? Is that like a 10? Because to me it was like a 12, and she might have said, no, that's like a 5. And when I'm like, well, God, if that's a 5, then I don't ever want to experience a 10. But I think that was I think it was a 12 on a scale of 10, but we made it safe, and we'll make it safe. Hopefully tomorrow, back to the Bay and enjoy the Super Bowl. So for Kyle and for Raph and for everybody in the chat as well, we really appreciate you, and we'll talk to you Monday night as the Warriors will take on the Bucks, and the best Dubs coverage in the Bay lives right here on KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.
He's kind of the de facto point guard, playing with Pajemski. He's always better with a ball handler. And that pass from Draymond to Butler, laid in and trying the foul. I told you he could keep doing that. Like, Draymond's always going to be looking for him.
Emirates Cup or bust.
Oh, hell yeah.
First of all, you got to start off liking each other.
I'm super cereal.
Big fat dub.
Ain't nobody going to stop me. I just wake up and I can shoot it no matter if I'm playing or not.
But great win.
Who are these guys?
I love you, JD. Bye, sugar.
I can see the headline now. Kerr says Warriors better without Curry.
Jimmy freaking Butler puts it in.
Everything's going to be all right.